We're still plugged in here.
I just connected.
We're live.
As a result of finished right here, I'm sure. It's something that's really not good. I haven't
We're already
just to
manage.
we start
Look at your
somewhere.
watch.
So you. It's going to take a while for it to like really happen.
And then 2 months, one step away from raising 165 4
J'ai suivi sur Facebook avec un peu de incroyable. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Can I have your attention, please? How's everyone doing? Thank you for joining us for our very first show and tell event. We're quite happy that you're joining us here today. We're also YouTube live streaming, so if you want to share the link, please go to our YouTube channel and share it with your colleagues. So we'll get started in a bit, but just a few logistics things. Cell phones, ringers off, please. Thank you. Next, the toilets. You need to go to the washroom. Exit by the door in the back. Our colleague James is there and John, and they'll give you a pass. Aside from that, yes, this is a bilingual event. Donc, c'est un événement en anglais et en français. On va avoir une période de questions. We'll have Q's and A's. So if you have a question, we got two ways. One, you can use Slido, sli.do. And for the English, you can ask, the code is K528. Et en français, tu utilises le code Q148. Fortunately, we have no Wi-Fi. But this is our first event. And we're only going to improve as we move along. So that's it for me. I'd like to introduce our first speakers, Pascal et Anatole.
We didn't even do anything yet. Welcome everybody, bienvenue. We're really excited to be here, to be doing our first kind of open house and show and tell. A critical part of what we are as an organization, what we've committed to is to work in the open, and this is one of the ways we intend to do so, and that organizations like ours elsewhere around the world and elsewhere in Canada have done so. Et on est vraiment super énergisé d'avoir vu la réaction, la réponse que vous êtes ici, et pour tout le monde qui nous suit sur YouTube. C'est vraiment fortement encourageant, et on est vraiment hâte de vous présenter un peu de ce qu'on fait, de ce qu'on apprend pendant qu'on le fait, et après ça d'entendre vos questions. And really have that opportunity to hear from you as well, your questions, your thoughts, and as we kind of hear about what's going on elsewhere around the government and outside government, that's part of our learning as well. So thank you for joining us. We're really excited, and I'm going to turn it over to Pascal to just very quickly provide an overview of who we are and what we do.
Yeah, hi, I'm Pascal. I'll try to be brief, given that I'm assuming that since you're here, you probably have seen our website. It's interesting because I joined Treasury Board about a year ago, and my role was to set up an incubation team that would eventually become CDS. So when I first started, we were only 3 people, and we're over 30 today, which is amazing. We're 10 times the size of when I first started. When I joined the team, there were a few folks in TPS doing research underpinning the creation of what would eventually become CDS. And so they were looking a lot at the experiences of other jurisdictions like the US, the UK, Australia, who had created these digital delivery organizations to help improve online service delivery. We had also done cross-Canada consultations, so visiting 10 provinces and 20 cities and talking to unusual suspects about digital government and their experience interfacing with the government of Canada. And what we heard wasn't surprising, that the government is a black box, that people don't know how to do business with us. And surprisingly, a lot of people said that they would be interested in doing short-term tours of duty with the Canadian government for mission-driven work. So they may not be interested in a 30-year career with the public service, but they might be interested in coming in on a short-term assignment to help solve some of Canada's biggest problems. So in March, we were announced in Budget 2017. The budget committed to the government to working in new ways when it comes to digital transformation, based on the experiences of the US and the UK. And the fine print that nobody read because it wasn't made public was that we needed to turn around very quickly and produce a memorandum to Cabinet and a Treasury Board submission outlining the business case for the creation of Canadian Digital Service. So that meant coming up with a work plan, resource allocations, a funding envelope, how we were going to allocate the different funding in different streams, and crafting our mandate. So in doing so, we built our mandate around 3 key buckets of work. And the first is delivery. So 3/4 of our organization, about 80% of our resources are focused on delivery. And the idea was to create multidisciplinary project teams that could go sit with departments. And these are service departments, so departments that deliver client-facing services to Canadians, CRA, CPSA, ESDC, immigration, veterans, and to help them look at digital problems in new ways. So work in agile methods, work with open source, and to bring all the different facets of the organization together in one team as opposed to working in silos. So we've been hiring developers, service designers, engagement practitioners, data scientists, cybersecurity experts, and who work together around one problem. We've also tried to mix internal talent with external talent. So we have bureaucracy hackers that are helping us navigate the process, get through the governance and approval process, but also stand up the organization. That's organizational design, positions, working through procurement and HR. And it's been interesting to see how that team has come together and coalesced. The second stream of our mandate is capacity building. And this is in recognition of the fact that even at full capacity, we're only going to be about 100 people. And there are over 17,200 IT professionals in the Government of Canada, not to mention communications professionals, program and policy folks, who are all working to improve digital service delivery. So if we want to have any lasting impact or any chance of changing the system, we need to address some of the systemic barriers. And so that's what we're doing through our capacity building work. We're working hand in hand with departments, helping them think about problems in new ways, but also helping them work through some of the more immediate issues like access to cloud or how to put through interchanges to bring top talent into the public service. The third stream of our mandate is the provision of advice. And this really came out of our minister's appetite to have a team of IT experts that could look under the hood. So we like to call them the geeks on wheels, who can kind of look at Treasury Board submissions and big projects that are coming through for approval to the board to see if the IT requirements make sense. So Treasury Board already does this from a program and policy and governance perspective, but not necessarily with regard to the IT requirements and whether or not they're adequately stated. In just a few short months, we were launched officially in July, so we have a few months of experience under our belts. We've encountered a few challenges, I would say, and I think they boil down to two major ones. So the first is recruitment. We haven't been able to scale up quite as fast as we would have hoped. Some of the skill sets that we're looking for example, like product managers, are nascent in Canada, and we don't necessarily have a huge talent pool to draw from. And in those cases, that means looking outside of Canada, which means that by the time we're doing security and interchange agreements and visas, it's taking a little bit longer than we would have expected. The other issue we're facing is demand from departments. And so we don't charge for our services. We don't operate on a cost recovery basis. Our services are essentially free. So we have departments banging at our doors looking for help. We get about 40 requests for partnerships a month. And for us to be able to triage them properly, that means we need to do the analysis and the research and look under the hood and understand their business before we can decide whether or not we want to play. And so to help us in that work, we've developed selection criteria for our projects, and we like to call them the 3 R's. And so this is how we've been prioritizing demand from departments for our services. And so first, we like to look at the reach of the potential service improvement. We want to know how many users this service improvement would affect, and what's the nature of that impact. Are we saving money versus reducing wait times? Are we saving lives? What's the potential? We're also looking at the readiness of the partner department. So part of what we're trying to do is to move away from waterfall IT project management approaches to smaller agile sprints, working in multidisciplinary teams, working hand in hand with departments, working in open source, using agile methods, and any department that agrees to work with us agrees to work in the open. So that means we've committed to blogging openly about the work that we're undertaking and publishing all of our code in GitHub. Finally, the last piece that we're assessing in terms of our project opportunities is the replicability potential. So as I said, even at full capacity, we'll only be 100 people. It's not a lot in a public service of 300,000 employees. So for us to be able to have an impact, we want to look at solutions that have a potential to be scaled across government. So we're looking at the fact that we're situated actually at the Treasury Board provides us a decent level of line of sight to the problems that departments are facing. So we know that there are certain areas that are fairly common that departments are grappling with, things like photo capture apps, benefit eligibility calculators, scheduling for different types of appointments. And so when we see problems that are common across the system, we know that there's more potential for us to make an impact. So maybe I'll pause there and turn it over to Anatol, who will walk you through some of our early project work, where we're at today.
Thanks, Pascal. Merci. So, yeah, just going to give you a start of a flavor of a few things we got up to in our early days, because you're going to hear about a few of our projects more in depth. So we're going to pivot now to kind of what we're actually up to. So this is going to be a little bit of a sprint through, not maybe quite Ignite style for those who've been to Policy Ignite or similar presentations, but I'm going to go pretty snappy and then turn it over to some of our teams to talk about a couple of projects in depth. First up, we have e-briefing. So we have a public-facing mandate. We also talked about saving a tiny slice of our resources for being able to solve internal pain points that have scale. And we had a few spare cycles very early in the days of our organization, just as we were forming up and getting ready to announce that we threw at the problem of how do you avoid taking this much binder with you on a trip and end up with a slick package on an iPad that you can use to navigate, a multi-day international trip or a big meeting. So we did an initial hack within basically about a week and tested it with a few folks here at the Secretariat and shipped it off with our Minister and Secretary for a trip they took to the UK to actually learn about digital government. We felt it was apropos and pretty inappropriate to send them off with reams of paper. And we've been working since then on iterating it. We've added remote syncing functionality. We've added an admin interface so that another team can essentially use this to build a briefing package. And we're hoping to start, we've got one partner department so far, and we're hoping to onboard others gradually to kind of test this out and look at how we can scale it up and maybe find a service partner for its kind of permanent operation. But it's just a little kind of interesting test as the team was sort of was forming up. We also, another one that was similar in style and pace was doing a prototype of a service dashboard. So we took a whole bunch of data, number of different kind of databases, and something our team essentially did a quick mashing together of the data, cleaning of the data, structuring of the data, and threw it into a neat little presentable dashboard. And what was interesting about that was the was the volume. What was interesting about that was really what it showed about the power of the data, because it turned out that we had some departments that, for example, show and I'm not joking here, a 36,000% completion rate on services by their users, which suggested that something's up with how we define like what a service is and what a completion is that doesn't jive across departments. So we've handed that prototype off to our colleagues in the CIO branch, who we try and work with closely in their service strategy and open government teams, as something that hopefully you can build on in the future and maybe as a public-facing open government service. And then another project we're doing very quickly with Natural Resources Canada is basically around, they came to us with the question of how to unlock the potential of home energy ratings data and how to actually kind of present that. We stepped back and started with first a prototype and now a live project we're doing essentially to create and set an API for that data as a way to provide structured access, not just that the department, of course, can use to add and build services on top of, but so that academics and other researchers, private and civil society organizations can actually have a way to access that data and create value and services on top of it. So we're really excited, we're pretty pro API. You will find out at CDS, so we were really excited to find an early opportunity to look not just at what the final presentation might look like for a department, but how do we actually use APIs to unlock access to data, to unlock access into federal services, and it's going to be a really important part of our toolkit going forward. Lastly, I want to talk about something we're really excited about. We have a new organization, relatively new organization in Canada called Code for Canada, based out of Toronto and modeled on Code for America and Code for Australia, where this organization essentially recruits talent, forms it into small delivery teams, essentially with a developer, designer, product manager, and then deploys those teams into governments that have huge popularity in the US with kind of state and local governments, for example, as a way to bring surge capacity in from the private sector and civil society in well-formed teams that they know will kind of work together and gel well as a team and can kind of come in and deliver quickly. And Code for Canada provides sort of a month of onboarding, sort of boot camp training, and then provides the team to a government. So we are really excited because we in Ontario have grabbed the first two Code for Canada teams. And so we have working with us Dan, Leon, and Raluca. Raluca's our UX designer on the team, Leon's the developer, and Dan is our product manager, and maybe even, I've already got name tags on, but whoever's here, maybe I'll get you to sort of wave there. Oh, okay, wave back. The other end of the room. So we're really excited to have this Code for Canada team that landed with us a few weeks ago. And what's interesting about this is I'm going to describe the project they're working on. So we're both, of course, using it as a delivery mechanism, and we're also getting to experiment with a new way of bringing talent into government. And we went through the work of like, what does it take to actually bring on a Code for Canada team and pay for the training part and pay for salaries and do all the logistics in a way that we can create a recipe for other departments or other governments to be able to, especially other departments, to be able to use if they want to bring on a Code for Canada team once that organization starts to scale second and third rounds of fellows. So we have our great Code for Canada team working with some other members on our team and with the Department of Veterans Affairs, essentially on the problem of how do we make it simpler for veterans to identify what benefits they're eligible for. Those kinds of eligibility questions can be really simple or they can be really complicated, and we're trying to make it a lot more straightforward to really understand so people know and can then of course actually take advantage of those benefits, apply for and take advantage of the benefits. So that's another project that's getting underway, and with that I'm going to turn it over to a more in-depth walkthrough by Mario and Wendy on our challenge platform.
Okay, so for folks on YouTube, we hear you. We need to talk louder and closer to the mic. So I apologize in the room. This might be a little challenging for you. But we're going to try to do our best to work through it as we're iterating on being online and trying to accommodate all your needs here as well. So thanks for joining us. I'm Wendy. I'm the partnership lead at the Digital Service.
Et moi, c'est Mario. Je suis le Delivery Manager à CDS.
So we want to talk to you a little bit about our first public project. We just launched it a few weeks ago. We actually just pushed a blog out the door yesterday. So there's a little more information up there online. And we're going to say a big hello to the partners who I see in the back, who we worked with on for this one. So thanks for joining us. That's a very underwhelming slide. Bear with us. We're streamlined, but that's a little bit much. So earlier this summer, the Privy Council Office, which is our center of government, they came to us for a little bit of advice and guidance around buying a challenge platform. So it was actually started off as a procurement question or a procurement conversation. We had a couple meetings and we looked at some documentation, and really early on we flagged that kind of the current buy approach wasn't going to hit the mark on our requirements. We need to make sure the service would be bilingual, and that was a lot of heavy lifting given their timelines for a platform off the shelf that wasn't bilingual. We also talked a lot about accessibility and the standards here in Canada. And then we talked about data and making sure that if you're running a brand new service, you really need access to the data from that service in order to know whether it's working well. And so we did what people don't do with PCO. Maybe cover your ears, guys. We offered to do more than they asked for. And I don't know if that was smart. I joke. It was a great idea. It actually was a no-brainer, and I'll tell you why. When we had the engagement sessions last year, if you look at the report that's up on our website, one of the things that really stands out is that people wanted government to give them a better opportunity to engage. And that there were sectors out there, the nonprofit and the private sectors, that really didn't have an opportunity to participate in government. And that there was a lot of untapped kind of excellence and resources and skill sets from coast to coast. And challenge platforms, they're kind of a known entity, other governments have them, and they've shown real results. So for us, this was a problem, there was a logical solution, and we kind of found that it fit right within our wheelhouse. We were really excited as well. In our early days, I think we were 1 month old when we had this meeting with PCO, so we were happy they were willing to take a chance on a newbie group. We were candidly unproven, and so being the first partner was a little risky on their part too, so thank you. But PCO was really ready to work the way that we work. So in this case, they were willing to take an agile and iterative approach. They were willing to launch without all of the features built. That's a lot to sell your minister. And so they were absolutely ready to do that if it meant saving taxpayer resources and focusing those on actually designing and building what was the most important, which is the challenges that will be hosted on their service.
Testing. I'm actually the only one who can drop the mic. So. On a fait nos recherches, on a fait des analyses d'options. Puis, il y a beaucoup de pays qui avaient déjà passé à travers ça avant nous. Donc, on a regardé ce qu'ils ont fait. On avait des besoins différents pour côté accessibilité, côté langues officielles. Donc, on a regardé les technologies, on a regardé les décisions qui avaient été prises par justement d'autres pays, d'autres organismes. Puis c'était important pour nous de travailler avec quelque chose à source ouverte, qu'on pouvait obtenir de l'aide, qu'on pouvait ensuite reproduire, laisser d'autres personnes pouvoir l'utiliser. Donc il y avait une super plateforme au gouvernement qui a eu d'excellent travail déjà fait avec Drupal. Et puis on a décidé d'y aller avec ça. Ça a fait en sorte qu'on a pu travailler rapidement avec des itérations. Et puis ça nous a permis de travailler rapidement justement avec les clients aussi, du bureau du conseil privé et d'infrastructure aussi. Côté infrastructure, je ne veux pas dire infrastructure du ministère, mais infrastructure où ça allait résider. Avec le mandat qu'on a d'expérimenter, c'était sûr qu'on voulait aller vers le cloud pour héberger la solution. Donc ça a été quand même un défi pour nous. Ça n'allait pas assez vite. On avait le processus qui était en place, n'était pas totalement défini. Donc on a travaillé avec le bureau du conseil privé pour obtenir un espace dans les nuages, info-nuagique. C'est bizarre en français. On a été chanceux, on a pu avoir un espace, on a pu expérimenter. Et puis là, maintenant, le prochain travail de ce côté, ça va être de travailler avec le bureau du conseil privé pour transférer la capacité vers eux pour pouvoir héberger l'application.
It sounds like this is working better, so if it's not, someone wave at me and I'll try this. So this is the thing, show and tell, so we're showing. Our core focus on designing this service was actually with the goal of reuse in mind. And so when we started the project, the Privy Council Office had two early partners in Infrastructure Canada and Natural Resources Canada. So we had two departments who were going to be users of the platform itself. And we were able to design and build with them at the table the whole way along. It was actually pretty cool to have that many people with a vested interest. But if you've worked by committee, you know that doing all that in 2 months is quite the feat. So a big kudos to everybody for rolling up their sleeves and doing that. The focus really for us was on building. Could we go back to the other page just briefly? Sorry. The focus was really on building the shell or the container that the challenges going forward would live on. And I'm going to be really candid. So early on, we hit a total roadblock, like a full stop. And for an agile project with 2.5 months to get from start to end, that wasn't a happy place to be in. And we hit the roadblock because what we do too often in government is we write the content over here, and we design and build the service over here. And then we take the thing that was written by or for ministers and we try to shove it on a website and expect that to make sense to my grandpa. And he calls me and he complains about the public service and tells me he's paying my salary. And so in this case, we had approved text and it was completely preventing us from doing the job together. And everybody realized that. So the day before we actually went to a ministerial demo, we stripped all the design off our early platform, much to the surprise of many folks. And we went in with what was a white shell with gray text boxes on it. And people looked a little confused. But what it forced us all to do was actually read the content and actually look at the architecture of the site and realize we were missing the mark, all of us at the same time in one day. And so then, the next day, we started with content design sessions. And so both PCO and infrastructure came in, we broke apart all the content and we rebuilt it together. We took the content down by 50%. And so 2 paragraphs became 2 sentences. And we focused on those top buckets, what users actually want to know when they get here, a call to action in the middle. And those are things, a lot of us, we write these things thinking they're going to be promoted in a ministerial press release. But my grandpa doesn't read those. So he just surfs around on the internet. And he lands on a service. And when he gets there, he needs to know why the heck he should care and what the government can do for him or what he can do for his government. So we focused on that. If you can click down on this guy, every challenge that comes up on the site will get a new tile. And so the third area we focused on was actually designing a reusable template for challenges. When you come to this site, if every challenge looks and functions differently, you're going to get really confused. We also knew we needed to put some rigor and structure around how the kind of look on the site, the level of detail that would be there, and all of that was to make sure that users got what they would need. And And so this is the first iteration. It's designed so that it, on a mobile phone, is accessible and friendly. It's designed so that the first time you click on this page, you can tell whether or not it applies to you and where things are in the process. And in a future iteration, you'll actually be able to submit from right here on that first page. And so you can choose if you want to dig deeper. I can go back to the home page. Awesome. So we did a lot of work on content. Half of our time was spent on content. That's my estimate. And it's really important to realize the importance of that. So that's just a big thing we wanted to underscore with you today.
Donc, on a lancé, si on peut voir en haut, il y a un petit signe de bêta. Donc, ça, c'est une nouvelle façon de faire un peu aussi pour le gouvernement. C'est on essaie de montrer, de lancer en mode bêta pour montrer qu'on est constamment en train d'itérer. On a déjà eu du feedback sur des choses à améliorer, qu'on a déjà amélioré, ce qui montre que c'est important de continuer à regarder les médias sociaux, regarder nos courriels, être flexible. Puis ça, en travaillant en des sprints de 2 semaines, ça nous donne la chance de pouvoir modifier des choses rapidement. C'est un peu un nouveau concept que le gouvernement du Royaume-Uni puis d'autres gouvernements ont aussi adopté. OK. So c'est ça, c'est un bêta, c'est un produit minimal viable, un MVP qu'on dit en anglais. Ça ne veut pas dire que c'est de mauvaise qualité, que c'est des basses résolutions, ça veut juste dire qu'on a limité les fonctionnalités pour pouvoir lancer plus rapidement, pour pouvoir avoir du feedback plus rapidement. Et puis là, pour la prochaine itération, Wendy va en parler un petit peu après, c'est quoi les prochaines étapes, mais ça nous donne la chance de travailler sur des fonctionnalités une à la fois, pour pouvoir lancer ça plus rapidement encore une fois, pour avoir de la rétroaction.
Perfect. So what are we up to now? So it went live, and then we just kept working. We had a little moment. We got a little excited. We pushed the button all together. We did cheer. It's hard to make the thing. If it wasn't so hard, it would already be done, right? So it was great to get our first thing out the door, but that just meant we had to buckle down and work harder. So it's live. We're monitoring it. We're monitoring the metrics and analytics on it. We're also monitoring inboxes for feedback. And thank you to those. I think there's a few in the room who have already provided feedback. We turn it around as quickly as we can, and that's within hours or by the next day, wherever possible. But we're building more. So we're designing and building the ability to submit to a challenge, and we're going to be testing that both with departments and with users. We're also working on the content workflow so that PCO and departments can keep the content fresh and add new challenges. So that's kind of the work ahead of us. Because this is our first project, and because we don't have a mandate to operate services, we essentially kind of also have to hand over the keys to the car. And so what we're working on now as well is working really closely with PCO's program and the IT service so that they have the documentation and the hands-on training to pick up the service seamlessly and carry it on and maintain it. It's the first time we've done this. Not all digital services work this way. Some others actually hold their services, and so for us, we're going to learn. We're taking user feedback, and we'll iterate on it. So we expect it will get a little easier each time we do it, and then each project there'll be differences in how we go about it. It's also kind of an example of an early partnership for us, and so really important to know that this was a problem that was kind of a problem with a known solution, and so it's not right up the alley of how we always work. And I think it's really important that we be candid about, usually we like to work in the open on projects, and you're hearing from us after this is done. So that's not how we like to work. But in this case, we were working on an initiative that was tied to a Treasury Board submission, the program approvals were underway, and so we knew in taking it on that we wouldn't be able to work in the open. But we hope that the blog post we put out and then today give you an opportunity to chat with us, ask questions, give your feedback, and then our names and numbers are online, I think. So you can also reach out to both of us, and we'll loop back with the team if you want more info or if you want to provide more input on it. I think that's it for us. So we're going to take questions at the end on the platform, and I think we're going to transition over to Chris and Matula.
Thank you, Wendy. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Gogas. I'm the Chief of Design here at CDS, and I'm joined on stage by Mithula Naik, who's one of our excellent researchers. For the next 25 minutes or so, we're going to do a deep dive into one of our early projects. You've just seen the challenge platform, and Wendy's spoken really in detail about how that process went. We're going to go even a step further. We're going to take you through some of the qualitative research that we did for one of our early partnerships with Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. We're very excited about this. It's an opportunity to work from the ground up, conduct great qualitative research properly, slowly, making sure that we bring everyone along on the journey with us. We're going to talk in this presentation about users, and I just want to clarify right now, when we talk about users, we mean everyone. We mean everyone who interacts with that service. So it could be people like the people who are actually becoming citizens and going through the process of citizenship. But we also mean the back office staff, the call center staff, people working in IRCC offices. So we're going to try and give you a holistic overview, and like I said, Mithula is going to take you through the research, and then I'll be back up in a few minutes to talk about some of the solutions we've put forward. All right, there we go.
Hi everyone, I'm Mithula. It's really exciting to be talking to you about this work. Some background. In early February, an interdepartmental team from IRCC, policy analysts, 2 frontline staff, were led by service designers from the client experience branch to go on an intensive 3-week design challenge called the Citizenship Design Challenge. Their goal was to step into the shoes of their users and understand the citizenship application process from their point of view, so as to make service improvements back for them. And they did this by traveling to various locations across the country, meeting with users who are now going through the process or who have gone through the process. They also met with stakeholders such as IRCC consultants, IRCC services. They also visited IRCC offices that process citizenship applications. At the end of this design challenge, they presented their findings in the form of pain points or areas where users are facing difficulties with the service, and then ideas around this as service improvements back to the department. One area in need of improvement was the scheduling process for users who are attending their citizenship appointments, and that is their citizenship test session and their oath ceremony. Here, CDS was approached to help take a deeper look into the issues facing users as they schedule and they reschedule their appointments. For us, this challenge was really well aligned for a few reasons. Firstly, IRCC serves a really large number of people. People who are getting to know Canada for the very first time. And hundreds of people who are building their relationship with the country. IRCC also employs a large number of public servants across a range of job profiles and locations. So improving one service not only benefits the end user, but also the day-to-day working lives of public servants. And because of such high volumes, scheduling is an important service. Today for the test session and for the ceremony, but potentially a number of services that the government provides to people. And finally, because IRCC was as excited as we were in diving right into the project, allowing us to research and test ideas without having to wait for months to begin. And as Pascal mentioned, we call these criteria the 3 Rs: reach, replicability, and readiness. And that's why we were so excited to partner. These factors are further amplified when you look at the recent changes to IRCC's Bill C6. We've heard, and we're not even fully entirely sure, that there's going to be an increase in the hundreds and thousands of applications. This reiterates why we need to make sure that services are timely and simple and easy to use. So let's get into some of the details of research. We visited 2 IRCC local offices, the Ottawa office and Vancouver. But Vancouver provided the most amount of insight. We chose Vancouver because it sees a large number of, the processes a large number of citizenship applications on a regular basis. Vancouver is also seen as an early adopter of new technologies, such as, for instance, it was the first local office to implement electronic notifications of appointments by email. And so we set out to Vancouver, myself as a design researcher, we had a product manager and a delivery manager. And we were really excited when we got there to know that IRCC staff from Ottawa had joined us, as well as technical folks from GCMS and a member from the Client Service Center in Montreal. We were in Vancouver for a period of 3 days, and over this time we conducted nearly 15 research methods. I'm going to share some examples. We did observation studies of the citizenship test and the knowledge interview, and once these were completed, we conducted intercept interviews. These are spontaneous interviews in short formats conducted on site. We also did observation studies of a citizenship ceremony and intercept interviews with individuals and families once they had completed their ceremony. What was interesting about this is we were able to, meeting people after these 2 different appointments, we were able to intercept where they were, emotionally and otherwise, in the middle of the process, as well as in the end of the process. That was really valuable. From the perspective of understanding how agents themselves schedule appointments, we did some employee shadowing. We shadowed nearly 5 employees as they went about their day-to-day tasks. So this is really quietly, without interruption, taking detailed notes. And when they finished their scheduling, we had a discussion with them on their pain points and their stresses with the scheduling process. We had a GCMS expert walk us through the GCMS process of scheduling. So this was including all the system interfaces. This was particularly eye-opening, and we'll revisit this. On our 3rd day, after having conducted all of this research, we had a design workshop with the IRCC staff. There were about 25 of us. And this was to create a shared understanding of all of the problems that we had encountered from the last 2 days. And talk about some of our assumptions that IRCC had about the problem, as well as CDS coming into it. And then think about the direction that we'd like to move forward. And we did this using design techniques. We created user profiles of people we had interviewed from the last 2 days, about 25 profiles. We did some service analysis, breaking down the process into service steps. We created service blueprints and a system map, more design models to help us visualize and think about the problem. And all in all, this was a really productive trip. But when we came back, we also realized that some sources of data was missing for us that we wanted. For instance, we wanted to get more information about the letters that people were sending to IRCC in order to reschedule their appointments. These letters were a key element because they would tell us the reasons that they were rescheduling. Sort of being a window into what isn't working for them and what could be better. So we were super thrilled when IRCC got back to us with nearly 50 letters, 30 from the test session of rescheduling and 20 from the citizenship ceremony. And also our friend from the Client Service Center shared with us data of frequently asked questions of users and the call center script in which they answer these questions. They also provided for us call recordings between users and agents of scheduling. So that was a lot of primary data. So the next few weeks we were busy conducting qualitative data analysis, or as we call the analysis stage. And from that process came a number of insights about the scheduling process. But for today's purpose, I'm going to be sharing some key findings of users as they go through their scheduling journey. And these findings would inform how we would work together with IRCC to tell us about the first part of the solution that we'd like to work on. Our first insight describes how people experience a lack of control of their lives and schedules with the current process. So the scheduling experience begins in a period of intense anticipation. Take a moment to look at the quote. And all the ones you're going to see in the slides are from real users. Basically, people don't know when they really enter into the process of appointments. It's a period that's really blurry between unknown and waiting. But in waiting for their notice, they must exert influence on areas that they can control in their lives, and that's their own personal schedules. So that might be their university schedules, their job transfers, business trips, visiting family abroad. There's a lot going on while they're waiting for a notice that they have to keep moving on with. They do exert full control in these areas, and they plan meticulously. Our research tells us that people are excited even to share some of these personal schedules back with IRCC if they were requested. But there's always this lingering confusion that when a notice finally arrives, would they need to drop everything else and attend to the appointment? And we find that this is when there's a spike in the client service center. People are calling to let agents know of their availability and their unavailability. Sometimes agents take notes, but usually they go over the routine questions and give them an estimation of a waiting time. We find that giving people a greater sense of control, an ability to plan with ease, and reducing their stress and anticipation is important. When the notice finally arrives, people are having to read a really detailed document. Our research tells us that the design of the notice is too complex and lengthy, leading to users feeling overwhelmed. One officer at the workshop described the notice as being too wordy and lectury. Another officer told us that people don't really read past the first few paragraphs. And this is important because this is another reason why users call up the client service center, because of confusions with the notice. Or even worse, coming for their appointments without bringing the required documentation that was requested. So making sure the content, as Wendy said, of things, the notice is simple in design, uses plain language, and is easy to understand is key. So now, having received the notice, let's say the appointment does not work for their schedule for a number of genuine reasons. We found that people actually fear the idea of rescheduling. And this fear is amplified by the messaging on IRCC's on the website, as well as the notice itself, that the application file has a chance of being canceled if their reason for rescheduling is unacceptable. So given the notion that rescheduling is merely unacceptable, people are not sure what constitutes a reasonable explanation. Once again, they're calling the client service center to find out if their reasons are acceptable. What is okay? What is not okay? What is the range of reasons? And further, they're not sure of how to format this letter. And we all can relate to this, that a blank piece of paper is a lot more intimidating than a form with some questions and fields to fill out. So here the agent is giving advice on how to actually format this letter, taking more of their time. And finally, in writing this letter, we saw a really unfortunate and like ironic pattern of people experiencing these contradictory and mixed emotions. And these have to do with feelings of honor, pride, happiness, and joy in finally receiving a date, versus feelings of shame, embarrassment, fear, and sadness in rescheduling this once-in-a-lifetime event. There was a strong sense of stigma attached to the act of writing a letter. They're not sure if IRCC officials will take their explanations into account and whether they'll keep their unavailability in mind for rescheduling. Whereas in talking to the IRCC agents, rescheduling an appointment was merely a business process. In fact, there's this understanding that for nearly all applicants, the very first time that they request for rescheduling, it's always accepted. So that was really interesting for us. And with that, I conclude insights from the user research, and I invite Chris to share insights from the back office. Thank you.
I want to dwell on that last point for a moment, and it's the fact that for a user, for a person actually becoming a citizen, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, an incredible moment in their life. This is something that often, comes with pomp and circumstance and a great deal of emotional value. I mean, I had the opportunity to become a citizen in the United Kingdom, and for me, it was taking a day off work, dressing up, putting on a suit, shaving, doing my hair properly. These are things I have not done today, I apologize. But no, it shows the disconnect, because for that IRCC staff member, this is just business as usual. And we often forget when we're mired in Excel and GCMS and software that we're actually helping people, we're actually making a difference, and we're actually doing things. So that emotional disconnect, that mindset disconnect, I think is really important. And I want to talk a little bit about how we're going to try and address some of those things. So this is an incredibly simple and easy to understand map of the systems. And the reality is actually this is the best version of that. We simplified it as much as possible, but it's still 30 different steps that you have to go through if you're going to reschedule someone. So it starts off with Outlook, and then there's a little bit of use with a barcode scanner, and then this pale color here is Excel, which is really the workhorse of the Canadian government. We use Excel for everything, and we bypass systems and just Excel, Excel, Excel. You'd think we'd be a lot faster, given we excel so much. No, I'm sorry. But then there's also, there's a great big use of GCMS over here in light purple. And actually what you'll see here is just copying and pasting. People copying and pasting details over to different systems again and again and again. It's tedious work. It's back and forth, it's back and forth, it's multiple windows. So with that in mind, we thought, all right, we can't go near some of these systems. We have to develop intelligent solutions that work around this and take into account all of our users. Of course, users being everyone who the service touches, not just the people on the street, but the staff as well. One of the things we discovered is that a lot of the existing systems are quite fragile. So this is the mailing system that actually sends out the notifications to people becoming citizens. And Bella was developed as a prototype over the summer, and as all good prototypes should be, it should have been thrown away. Unfortunately, it's just working, and so it's been put to work a little bit more and more. And we've realized that it's a fragile system, because very often what happens is it will have trouble actually delivering emails. And that's, of course, to be expected with a prototype. But this poor gentleman's job, he actually has to make sure when he's running Bella that nobody's touching their computer. He literally asks, hands off keyboards, everyone, no one touching your keyboard, okay? You can't jiggle the mouse, you can't move your computer, you can't access the hard drive or the network, otherwise Bella may stumble. So we know this is not an ideal situation. Software should be a little more robust than that, but it's a prototype. It proves that something can be done, and that's really valuable, even if it does fall over sometimes. So, Staff are always dealing with constant process changes. You saw those 30 different boxes. I'm going to flip back to here. This, imagine adding another layer of software and asking for training on top of that. It's just not useful to the staff, and we've heard this time and time again. Please, don't make my life difficult. That's an incredibly important thing to remember, because productivity and service standards, we need to maintain them. Anything we do as designers, as CDS, we have to deliver value. And if we're not making our staff's lives easier, or our partner staff's lives easier, then we're not doing the right thing. So, we also discovered that emails, because right now what happens is when you're notified by email that you have a citizenship test or oath swearing ceremony coming up, to reschedule it, you just reply to that email, which seems like a great idea, except it's a terrible idea, and here's why. The moment people realize they're talking to another human being, someone close to the process, those emails spiral out of control. They just back and forth, more emails than ever anticipated. A really surprising, but not that surprising, unintended consequence. It's actually better than a call center, because you get direct connection to that person. You don't have to wait on hold, there's no hold music, there's no call center scripts. You just get right to the person. You have an expert an email address away. And we discovered that the staff were being inundated with email, just overwhelmed by the sheer volume. So we knew we had to do something about that as well. So I want to talk a little bit about our approach. We decided we need a really simple, transparent way for users, and I say transparent there to talk about the fact that right now, a user, there would always be some question if they wrote in a letter whether or not they'd been confirmed. So we knew that we had to actually address that and provide some validation to the user. And we also had to make it easy for people. We also had to tackle that key pain point for staff. We can't develop software that needs training. No one has 45 minutes or an hour or a half day to learn a new system. That's complexity, and we've failed in our job if we're doing something like that. Our solution has to be designed for the users. And then we had some goals. Ideally, we wanted to increase user satisfaction. Originally, I had said, oh, what if we could make our users happy? But no one is happy when they deal with the government. It's just like, how do I do this in the simplest way possible with the least amount of pain? So it's about increasing user satisfaction, that transparency that I talked about. Ideally, we're also reducing call center volumes. Fewer call center calls, shorter calls. That means a better service standard there. We can also reduce work for the back office staff. And assuming we do this properly, adjusting content, revising the service intelligently, we might also be able to reduce appointment no-shows. People who don't show up for their citizenship ceremony, or who don't attend their test. Hopefully we can reduce that as well. So, big reveal. Here's what we're proposing. And it's going to seem small and simple, but bear with me. I'm going to walk you through it. Here's our user. This is someone who's about to go through the citizenship experience. They need to reschedule their test. Rather than writing a letter and sending it in by mail, they can do this by email. They got to receive an email. This email says, you have a test coming up. What we're going to do is we're going to make it so that that email is simple and clear with plain language. No more 6 pages that you have to sort through. Just really simple, clear language. We're going to bring content designers and content authors into play. We're going to make sure that we work with IRCC to develop something that's still within policy, but easy to understand. So they're going to get this email, and then rather than replying to it, they're going to click through on a special URL. And that special URL is going to take them to a CDS-built web application. That CDS web application is going to ask, what is your UCI? What is your unique client identifier? Just so we know who you are. And please tell us why you have to reschedule. And we're going to do this very carefully, because right now, when you have to write in and say, I'm rescheduling for a valid reason, there's that terrible scenario where you're presented with a blank sheet of paper. It's like having to write a briefing note or an essay from scratch. It's just like, oh, where do I start? And so you've seen from earlier examples, people often start with a lovely preamble. Dear sir or madam, I'm terribly sorry to do this. I have to request that I could be rescheduled. Would it be possible? What we're going to do instead is we're going to give them an input field. We're going to prime our users. We're going to tell them, here are some examples of valid reasons. Just tell us in a few words. It doesn't have to be, a 500-word paragraph. We can actually make it simpler on our users. And then, of course, once they've actually filled in the why they can't attend. They're going to hit the submit button, and they're going to be shown a confirmation page. So we validated our users. We're being transparent. We're telling them someone will get back to you within N working days. We're going to maintain a service standard, and we're working closely with IRCC and our colleagues there to make sure that we actually get that standard correct. So this seems to address the need for the user. And in order to be lightweight and not integrate with GCMS or expensive APIs or massive amounts of technology, we're doing a really simple thing. And it's this. In the background, we're going to send an email to the IRCC staff mailbox. This is generated by our web application, so there's no one who can reply to it. It's just a secret inbox, if you will. And that inbox is going to have the unique client identifier, so the person's number, and it's going to have their reason. This means that our staff no longer have to sort through long, detailed letters about what the reason is. They just get the meat and bones. There it is, simple and easy. It makes processing it simpler. They're digesting less information. Now this is neat, it's lightweight, it's great. The exciting thing for me is that we've designed it and we know this is going to work on another level. And that other level is this. Call center staff will be able to use this as well. The call center staff, they won't actually have to go through the email. They'll be able to jump directly to our web application. And while speaking with someone on the phone, we'll be able to ask, well, I've verified your identity, I have your calls, I have your UCI here. I'm going to go through it and I'm going to make the note for you. This means that call center staff no longer have to just go through their script and say, well, I'll make a note on your file. Here, they're actually taking the action for us. But they're actually taking the action on behalf of the RCC staff in the offices. So we've addressed another user point, and that's a great thing. This means call center staff are more empowered. Their service standard increases. We're excited about that. And then lastly, because this is our first version, I'm going to give you a sneak peek at what the future of this is. So right now we have to ask a client, or could you please give us your number? And that number is a little bit, well, it's a bit difficult word here, dehumanizing. Because we don't want to be referred to as numbers, we want to be known as people. So the next step is this. Our user gets an email, but that email comes from the CDS email machine. This is a web app. It's going to look exactly like that. It's probably going to take up about 2/3 of this room. No, this is a tiny little web application. All it does is send an email. It gets fed with maybe an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file, some sort of open, simple way to get people's names and details in there. If we're controlling the email, if we know who we're emailing, then we don't have to ask the user, the person, what their UCI is. We don't have to ask them their number because our email machine knows. They authenticate directly through that email to our web app, which means now we get to ask about other things. You know, we can say, do you have an accessibility requirement? Do you need a chair? Do you need to be able to stand? And that means for our IRCC staff on the ground, the people at the offices, they're able to help their clients and customers, our users, even more. They know what's going to happen before that person arrives. There's no surprises anymore. Again, the user goes through and gets a confirmation page. They're told, you know, you'll get a response within N working days. We're able to address other points there. Sometimes we've had people ask things like, is it possible to attend a ceremony with the rest of my family? And you know, now we can have RCC staff actually arrange that. So we make this process better on a human level. It's just nice to do things together. And at the same time, we're still just that lightweight solution, sending an email to the IRCC staff, making it clear and easy. They have all the details, and away we go. These seem like small, simple things. Email's really a simple, easy thing. We're all used to it. But it's nice because we know we can do this, we know we can deliver, and more importantly, these small, simple bits lay the foundation for us to work on a full service transformation. If we do these one little bits, it's like laying a foundation. Then we can build up walls, then we can build up flooring, stairs, and we can get to finishing. And we're excited about this because it means an opportunity to fully transform the citizenship experience one small step at a time. So, thank you so much for listening. I've been up here far too long. We're delighted to have seen so many people in the room, and we'd love to field questions at this point. So, we're taking questions via Slido. If you go there and you input that code, and for our French friends here, you can do the same. We'd love to answer anything you might have, and Stefan's going to field that for us. Thank you very much.
question that we have is from Alex, and I think it's the most popular and most relevant one. Just to do a quick survey, how many people in the room, by raising your hand, who is not in the government? Ooh. Thank you for joining us. That's quite the group. Looking forward to chat after that. Another question that's being asked, and I'll pass this on to you probably, Anatole, Pascal, or whatever. It's the second most popular question. How is the new GeoCCIO connected to CDS? What's the connection between Alex's job and what we do?
I was closest to the mic, so I'll take it. It was interesting because when we were standing up the organization, we had a lot of discussions internally about where would be best to house CDS. We talked about creating a new organization, about our relationship with SSC, and how crowded the GCIT ecosystem already is. But our minister is responsible for the Government of Canada service strategy, which encompasses the largest service departments, the 10 largest. And he really wanted to be able to leverage the line of sight that being centered or housed at the center of government would provide to help departments meet those commitments under the Government of Canada service strategy. And Alex Benet, our new CIO, has a really ambitious transformation agenda, rejuvenating the CIO community, working with SSC. And it was determined that CDS, in the first 3 years of incubation, would be housed at CDS, but for the time being, we're reporting directly into the Secretary of the Treasury Board's office. And we are we're in the midst of a global talent search for a Chief Executive Officer. We're also heavily recruiting in all of our streams. So if you check out our website, we're recruiting in 5 streams. So developers, service designers, data scientists, engagement practitioners, and product managers. And the idea is to build a team that will eventually onboard our new CEO, hopefully early in the new year. So I hope that answers it, but yeah, sure.
Just 2 quick points that actually pick up on maybe points Pascal raised right at the beginning. One is that part of why CDS was set up, and again, that line of sight factor is common problems and common solutions. So the other thing we're trying to do, and by sitting alongside CIOB and trying to work with them, is to be able to see something maybe across 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 projects, or even requests that we get from departments to work with them and say, you know what, this is not just a hands-on project issue. This is an issue around a standard or a policy or a system level blockage, and we can come back and bring that insight to our colleagues in CIO who are responsible for that standard setting function, for example, to try and fix it at a more systemic level as part of that broad transformation and modernization agenda. And the other thing I wanted to pick up on, so the project angle is around advice and capacity building. So there are a lot of areas where we'll be able to both tackle elements of capacity building, like increasing representation of women in technology, and also from an advice perspective. Pascal mentioned that kind of look under the hood function early on. Again, there are these functions that exist already in the Treasury Board for looking under the hood of submissions and IT projects. But again, we might be in the course of hiring around our delivery mandate, maybe we've brought in a set of expertise, somebody with a really great, particular data science, data engineering specialization, where we can get that call for, and sometimes it'll come from a department, but can also come again from that CIO branch to say, do you guys have somebody who can take a look at this piece as part of that oversight that's maybe happening in the program sector of our Treasury Board Secretariat, or obviously in the CIO branch when it comes to IT oversight.
Okay.
Merci. Prochaine question de Jacinthe qui demande, y a-t-il de la gestion de changement effectuée lors de ces projets? Ou j'imagine, est-ce que le ministère ou le Service numérique canadien prend charge du changement? So to say the question in English is who's responsible for change management when implementing these solutions?
Il n'y a pas de réponse facile. C'est facile, on peut déjà arriver là. Mais l'idée, c'est de travailler de très près avec le ministère. Alors, on n'est pas une firme de consultants. Tu ne peux pas juste nous appeler et dire venez nous bâtir une application ou un portail, puis on va construire la solution, puis la livrer au ministère une fois que c'est terminé. On travaille de très près avec les équipes, on s'assoit avec eux ou ils s'assoient avec nous et on travaille ensemble. Et l'idée, c'est de gérer le changement, de les aider à livrer la solution, puis de les aider à bâtir la capacité dans leurs équipes à travailler de façon différente.
Ok, parfait, merci. Prochaine question. Gov UK started by migrating content from being ministry-centric to being citizen-centric. Which customer use cases are you prioritizing and why?
This one sounds like it's right up my wheelhouse. Okay, so partnership lead means I get the emails from people who want to work with us, everyone. And so I think 2 important points. The first is that we partner with government departments. We've gotten a lot of requests from vendors, from civic tech groups. We've even gotten requests from members of the public, parents who want to make services better for their kids. So we take all that into consideration and we do try to reply to everybody. And we do kind of compile it all to help us build the use cases to how we prioritize things. But we're really predominantly looking at making services better. And so it's either existing services or new services. And so when we're out chatting with folks, we're not looking to talk about a solution that people want, we're looking to actually talk about the problem that they have. And so kind of the example of the project that Chris and Matula talked about, that's the type of work that we're looking to do. We're looking to come in and help define or unpack a problem, find the pain points, and then work together to really help improve the service with the department. So that means we're not just focusing on content use cases. We're looking for really core service improvements. And we think many times that will include content. I saw a couple questions on Slido and Twitter around content. It's part of your service, but we also have a lot of government departments who have been doing some really heavy lifting on making their content better. So each one of our projects, we try to actually put together a team that rounds out the capacity of the department. So if a department has a user-centered design group, we'll bring different expertise to bear to help them kind of do the awesome work that they want to do. Biggest use cases for us right now that have come across our desks, citizenship and immigration, veterans and improving the access to veterans benefits. We're keen and have started to talk with partners at Indigenous Services as well. So 3 big areas. To give you a sense, at any time, our capacity will be 3 to 4 projects. So there's a lot of work to be done. So we are doing a little work over the holidays to actually sync up our capacity with all the requests we've gotten and try to keep taking things on.
Parfait, thank you, Wendy. La prochaine question, c'est en français. Comment peut-on appliquer ces méthodes agiles, rapides et efficaces au sein de plus grandes organisations au sein du gouvernement? Allez,
Oui, c'est vrai, parce que présentement, c'est facile pour nous. On a une petite équipe, on a quand même toutes les politiques, on respecte toutes les règles, on passe pas à travers des murs. Je veux dire, c'est difficile pour des plus grands ministères. À date, ce qu'on voit avec justement travailler avec d'autres ministères, c'est que il y a souvent des processus, c'est en anglais on dit des perceivable rules, des règles non écrites. On va dire non écrites. Donc c'est de souvent mettre au défi les politiques, mettre au défi les équipes TI. On a beaucoup de gens de programme qui viennent et qui disent moi je sais pas combien de temps ça va prendre pour mon groupe IT, mais souvent c'est de poser les bonnes questions puis de challenger, de mettre au défi tout le monde. Dans notre équipe, on travaille beaucoup avec notre équipe de service interne, c'est la même chose, c'est de mettre au défi les ressources humaines, de mettre au défi tout. Donc ça, je pense que c'est un aspect. Des questions, ça se fait par petite équipe aussi. Souvent, dans les ministères, on va avoir plusieurs équipes IT. On a en TI, on a des équipes TI qui sont dédiées aux services internes. On a des services TI qui sont dédiés à des programmes. De cette façon-là, c'est plus facile d'implémenter des méthodes agiles. Mais en même temps, à des plus grosses équipes, ce qu'on travaille beaucoup ici, c'est avec des équipes de projet. Donc, c'est de montrer au groupe TI à travers le gouvernement que c'est pas nécessairement avec juste une équipe de TI, juste avec des programmeurs qu'on va être capable d'effectuer toutes ces méthodes agiles-là, mais c'est d'impliquer les autres programmes, les autres disciplines. Donc, en travaillant, puis j'invite tout le monde, toutes les équipes TI et les équipes de programme aussi au gouvernement à venir nous voir. on est ouvert, faites juste nous envoyer un courriel à Wendy, s'il vous plaît. Donc, juste venir voir comment on travaille en équipe de projet, ça va jusqu'à travailler ensemble, travailler proche un de l'autre, pas juste de dire des étages différents. Fait que juste avec des petites étapes comme ça, on est capable d'améliorer la façon qu'on fait la prestation de service. Puis, du côté TI, c'est aussi des fois, c'est impossible. On travaille avec des outils comme, on parlait tantôt de GCMS, qui est comme un outil de Case Management System. Là. Donc, avec des outils géants comme ça, de faire des requêtes de changement qui peuvent prendre 8 mois à 1 an, on peut comprendre ça. C'est un peu plus difficile d'arriver à travailler de façon agile comme ça, mais en regardant les choses en petits sprints, puis en découplant, si vous voulez, toutes les choses qu'il faut changer, c'est de cette façon-là qu'on peut se concentrer, être un peu plus rapide et agile.
Parfait.
Merci beaucoup, Mario. The next question, how can I predict whether my problem has enough reach, replicability, and readiness to be taken up? Wendy.
Okay, so you can't, sorry. We get too many. So my first, I joined the team about 6 months ago, and my first week here I was getting 40 a day. We're down to about 40 requests a month. And so we talked a little bit at the start about reach, readiness, and replicability. So the fourth R is resources, and they're R's. We're still a tiny team, we're 30 people. We have essentially 2 delivery teams that are running full flight on their projects. We're running 4 projects right now at a time, and I'll be honest, it's pretty hard. There's a lot of heavy work going on, but the reality is we won't be able to get to everything. So my best advice, and what we're letting everybody know, if you have a fully baked TB submission, if you're committed to your solution, if your business requirements are all drawn up, it's not the right time to come see us. So what we're trying to ask people to do is come see us when you have a problem that you want help solving. And when you come to us, you just need to be open to have a chat with us about what that problem is. We always start our projects with what we call discovery and research. And so that means that that means that we come spend time with you and learn more over the course of a couple weeks. And then at the end of that discovery period, we have some insights from our research that let us know how we could help you. We bring those insights forward to you as a departmental service owner, and you let us know if you'd like to work together to design and build that thing. So that's kind of how it works right now. We do thank you for your patience with us getting back to you. I think we're at about a 2-week reply window right now, which Jennifer and I are pretty proud of. But we are seeing a lot of requests for code monkeys to finish the fully baked solution. So we're not here to do that.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. The next point is not necessarily a question, on va se en français. C'est plutôt Sébastien Girard qui mentionne votre solution de mise à l'horaire serait super utile dans mon organisation. Je suis certain que nos utilisateurs vivent la même chose et comment l'obtenir. Donc, je vous invite de venir discuter avec Mario et l'équipe ensuite à la fin de cette présentation. And we're going to take a couple of other questions, but just to mention that at the end of the presentation, you're all welcome to come and talk to our colleagues, either those who have presented or the other members that have the name tags. So we all have name tags, so please feel free to come and chat with us. Donc, la prochaine question, oh, but on that note, we all have to be out for security reasons by 3:30. I apologize.
Some rules.
Yeah, well, yes. But we're happy that, due to the format, there weren't a lot of difficulties with security. So, side note, Alex asked the question, has there been any feedback on the unusual approach to recruitment?
Generally really positive feedback on the unusual approach to recruitment, both externally and actually internally, right? All the users, as Chris would put it. It's resource intensive. We're trying to recruit at a high pace, and for a lot of different disciplines, right? So we're recruiting, as Pascal and others have talked about, from product managers, developers of different kinds, designers, researchers, UX specialists, data scientists and engineers, content designers, policy and communications and engagement folks. So it's a pretty broad spectrum, and we're trying to recruit fast, and we're trying to recruit from outside, not just government, but sometimes outside countries. So, but the response to that has generally been positive. And again, part of what we're hoping is that that's one of the things we can do in terms of lessons learned and capacity building is share how it's going. So start to package up again those recipes. How do you bring in a Code for Canada team? How do you do an interchange, right? Like interchange is actually this phenomenal flexible instrument that we have, but we don't use it enough across government, right? So how do you do it? What's the way to kind of make that really tick if we want to really start moving a lot of people in and out of the public service? We get that great cross-sectoral knowledge and skills and idea transfer, right? And again, not people having to sign up for life. We're hiring people generally on rotations, both internally and externally, right? I don't expect people will come, to join government for 20 years. It's the same model as in the US. People came from Silicon Valley, right? Some top people came from Silicon Valley first to work on healthcare.gov, then to work on other exciting projects at the scale of government, right? At the scale of their country, come for 6 months, come for a year, come for 2 years. So the reception's generally been great. We're really, again, it's about exploiting all the flexibilities of the toolkit that we already have. And we have a phenomenal internal operations team, Mira and Jennifer and Shelley, and students with us right now, Sharma and Priyanka, who are doing this phenomenal job across, again, a really wide range of disciplines. But it's a learning process for us to be able to do it at pace, and things don't always fit right now, the existing things, right? We put people in boxes, right? That's our language, right? We create boxes and we put a person in a box. It's terrible. But, so we're having, it doesn't always fit. The boxes aren't always right boxes. Some of the kinds of people we're trying to hire, that's not a current job classification exactly. So we have to sort of work through that, and sometimes it's messy in the beginning, and we hope over time we'll be able to make it such that it's not just better for us, but easier across the system.
Okay, thank you, Anatol. Just to mention also, it's been tweeted out, but the presentations that you're seeing here, for everyone that registered, you'll receive it by email. So just to let you know. The other one is not necessarily a question, but more of a comment we received from Anonymous. We don't know who Anonymous is, but Anonymous is watching live on YouTube. It says, I clapped out loud in parts of this, and people in my office now think I'm weird. That's okay. The next question is from Anthony. How is CDS helping departments and IMIT teams outside of the project CDS is working on?
So we're doing some work in capacity building, which involves us. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So we're doing some work in capacity building, which involves us actually giving advice to some departments across government. It also involves us giving workshops at conferences, as well as inviting other government departments to come join us at our CDS headquarters and running them through a bunch of the different methodologies that we use within our research practices here at CDS, just to kind of spread the word. We're going to start blogging more openly about the work that we do too, so we hope to be sharing some of the methods and sort of research practices that we're using, as well as some of like the large-scale placemats that we're designing that teams can then take and incorporate on their own projects as well. And then some of our capacity building initiatives also involve us thinking about how we can leverage existing design standards and capabilities that other digital services and other organizations have already built out, and how we can kind of create like a repository of all of that knowledge. So we don't necessarily want to be the knowledge bearers of everything, but we want to kind of combine everything together into one place. So some of the work that we're doing with other departments is along the lines of giving advice and sharing just some of the resources that we're using, and as well as some of the tools that we're using as well.
Right, we're done for the questions. We're going to start the wrap-up, but for the questions we haven't answered, we promise that we'll answer them through the various means, either through our social media or our blog. So thank you to everyone who submitted questions. Please, just because this Q&A period is done, keep on submitting them and we will address them. So now, with closing remarks, Pascal, Anatol.
Merci, c'est on va faire quelque chose de très rapide, on va peut-être parler beaucoup, on a déjà parlé trop. On espère, ce que je vais dire, selon ça, le format un peu, aujourd'hui, on est un peu contraint de notre espace temporaire ici dans l'édifice. On espère que dans les prochains mois, On va être dans un espace où on peut vous accueillir et accueillir d'autres de manière un peu plus informelle, maybe a bit more science fair style or something, but have more of the session be a bit more engaged, a bit less classroom style. But we are going to kind of open things up now, and we're going to stick around the team members to be able to chat. I think you've heard mostly kind of some of the people you might want to reach out to afterwards, but I do see at the back there, for example, if you're excited too about APIs, Mike is there. Stand up, Mike. Mike's working on the NRCan project API. If you are excited about the service dashboard and some other work, Dave, I think I saw Dave back there. Yes. Dave is back there. In addition to the team you saw, for example, the platform, Eman can also talk to you about the platform from a design perspective, you know, the Code for Canada team. So stick around and chat with us. That was fun. Two, I just want to mention again, we are recruiting. So for those who are listening from inside and outside public service borders, we just wanted to reemphasize that. Again, I think you've heard probably ad nauseum enough the disciplines, but we are on the lookout for the best talent, and we want to hear from you. Visit our website if you want to know how. It's really easy to kind of find where to look to see what we're looking for and how to get in touch with us or talk to one of us afterwards if you're here in the room or looking for us online. Et la troisième chose, je vais juste rien pas dire qu'on est vraiment super énergisé. Pas seulement, c'est la réponse aujourd'hui qu'on a eue, mais aussi c'est qu'on voit la réponse du système. On n'est pas seul comme organisation. Il y a deux choses. On est dans un mouvement global. Et on a prêté et on a appris beaucoup des autres organismes aux États-Unis, au Royaume-Uni, en Australie, en Ontario. Et on est vraiment conscient que c'est un grand privilège de pouvoir apprendre des autres et des autres secteurs. Et l'autre chose, c'est qu'on voit les investissements que d'autres font dans notre système de gouvernement, par exemple dans le processus de conception et de recherche d'utilisateurs. So departments are investing in this. They're excited. This is like a really big movement, and we're so excited to be part of that and have so many different kinds of organizations and people to learn from and learn with as we go through this. Whether it's, you know, the open and civic tech community, open source, APIs, we are working alongside a lot of departments, alongside our CIOB colleagues here at the Treasury Board Secretariat, inclusive service design. These are all things that are, you know, we're all working on together. It's a lot of hard work to come, but we're excited just to see that there's so much force kind of around the world and here in Canada mobilized around this. So this is kind of, I think, a reflection of that, what we've seen today in terms of the turnout online and offline, and we're happy to continue the conversation in both those forums. Merci beaucoup d'être venu aujourd'hui. And last but not least, because I'm a terrible human being, just to thank the team that's put this together today. Over on the side, we've got Stefan, who's been moderating the Q&A from online and did a lot of the setup of this session, as well as Eman. We've got Nick, who we haven't introduced as well, over on the side, who's our in-house graphic designer. And so a lot of the fact that you see we have a presentable visual presence is the responsibility of Nick and none of the rest of us in terms of that talent. And others who, you know, Wendy, Mario, and others who helped to put together the session today. Thank you to our team as well. Merci à tous.